It's hard because I've mentioned this before and took criticism for it on this thing about the refereeing. But I generally, I'm passionate about that. I think that the academies need to look and define winning, and winning should be down to individuals getting better each day. And we've got to be better at maybe guiding young players to become more robust. I'm not disputing that fact. They've got to be more robust, win in different ways, and we can't all become just technical players. There's lots of different ways to win. But I do think at the top level that, you know, because I can only take the models of Holland, and I can only take the models of France, and I can take the models of Germany and these countries around the world, that the lesser teams don't try to fight and physically overcome the better team. They tactically try to overcome them. They try to technically overcome them. They still try to play a game. That doesn't mean they don't make it difficult for Ajax or they don't make it difficult for Paris Saint-Germain. But I think how the teams make it difficult in Scotland for Celtic and Rangers is different to most countries. It's definitely different to the Premier League. Yeah. If we watched the Premier League yesterday, Man United play Liverpool, for example, and they're two big clubs, but one's down the bottom end and one's at the top. Or if I watch Newcastle play away to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, the referees wouldn't have allowed Newcastle to physically, you know,
level playing field is never going to be down to brutality.
No.
It's got to be skillful.
No, and I think that the amount of long balls and the amount of fouls and the physical contacts in the game in Scotland, it tells you a story that you can't deny. We either accept it and we enjoy that part of the game in Scotland. Now, the amount of fans that are going to the game per capita is wonderful. I think it's the best in the world. That's what I've read. That the amount of people that actually go. Yeah, so there is a product of the game. I think sitting next to the world's biggest league does the SPFL no favours, because you're next to the world's biggest league with all the finance, where it's unreal to the rest of Europe, for example.
So let me take you. This is an old one. It may not have come up in your time in Scotland, but every now and again we get this thing: should Rangers and Celtic play in the English Premier? Should that be something that we aim for, so that they do play? We do have Scottish teams playing at this higher standard of football. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I really like Hearts, Hibs and Aberdeen as clubs. I really like them. I go to the stadiums and I get this lovely feeling that maybe you don't find in England with the new stadiums. It's like, you know, I get that I'm of that generation that still remembers the good old times, do you know what I mean? And I think the next generation are maybe a little bit different. But I get quite excited when I go to the stadiums in Edinburgh. I really like them, and it's really difficult to go out to Pittodrie. So I don't think there's just two big clubs. I think there's more than that. I think it's a disservice. But you have to look at it and say, well, how have Cardiff and Swansea managed to get themselves to the Premier League? What would Rangers and Celtic have done with 150 million a season for the last 10 years? What would they have done? Because they are huge clubs. Yeah. Huge fan bases, huge clubs. What would they have done? But I think then what would it do to the rest of the football in Scotland? I don't think that's going to be the thing that solves the dilemma at national team level. The national team level situation is, you know, Northern Ireland have managed to find a spirit and a bond that enables them to be successful above their wildest dreams in terms of getting to Europe. And I've obviously been over quite a bit with the Irish FA, and you can see the good work they're doing. I've also been around the Scottish FA and seen some of the good work they're doing. It's whether the Scottish would accept the success at the same level that Ireland see the same success. You know, get into the Euros or get into the World Cup and get knocked out, which I wonder if the glass would still half be empty, rather than moving on and being half full. I take that point. It
was interesting to me, for instance, that you chose to do your coach badges in Ireland.
Yeah.
You know, do you want to share that with me, or would just
that was more down to how I perceived the English FA. It's quite interesting. I did my level 2 in UEFA B with the Kent FA with Alan Walker, who obviously you know works over in Belfast. I did my A licence with the Welsh FA purely down to a financial thing. At the time I was funding it. I was 24. I didn't have a club fund it for me, and it was slightly cheaper than the English FA. And the English FA had something like a 5 or 7% pass rate at the time, which I thought, well,
No,
That's not going to work, you know.
No,
Like you
the
go on
odds
a
work
course,
for
you go on a
you,
course
yeah.
to come out the other side of it, even if you have to work on some things. Because I think that's how the English FA have improved massively, I have to say. And then I was going to work in Brazil at the time that I was wanting to take the pro licence, and obviously I'd gone over and done some work with Nigel Best and the Irish FA, and they allow you to be you. They just want you to articulate what your ideas are, but they certainly don't want to put you all in the same path and the same box. You know, and we had some real unique characters, as you know, on our calls, and I think that's it. That challenges you.
Yeah.
And I listen to other coaches who've been with the English FA now and have said that, but I just felt when I first started my coaching that they wanted to make us all the same, and I didn't want to be the same. I've always wanted to be my own person. So wherever,
And that's why I ended up there too. I worked with England, with the English FA, I'd never worked with the Welsh, but I did work with the Scottish, of course, and a bit with the Dutch too. But when you went to Ireland, it was about, like, what does this person want to do with their career? And the Irish people who came in, they didn't have really a professional Irish set up over there, but they came in and brought a different aspect to it, and it was interesting to see the people from the Premier League coming over there and mingling with the part-time people.
I thought it was really interesting because you had people that were working around the world, and you had the people that were working obviously in the home game, and I thought there was a lot of different experiences in the room, and I thought there was no one in the room who I thought they knew. I thought there was a lot of sharing of ideas in terms of finding their own way. But the one thing, you know, with Nigel, who runs the courses there, he would never tell you, right, we should go down that route. It's like, okay, if that's how you see the game, go on then, you better be good at explaining this. You better be good at putting this across, because you ain't really got to win me over. You've got to win over the people that are going to stand in front of you.
Yes.
I'm still not sure any of the courses prepare the people. And I've just recently, in the last couple of years, finished a pro licence. I really enjoyed the company of the people on it. I really enjoyed the majority of the speakers on it. I've been very lucky from the experiences that I've had previously at Chelsea about forming a document, which was a big Mourinho thing, about you form a document, because it was just, you know, publicised when he came to Chelsea. He had this document of the way he was going to work.
Yes.
So we had heard that as young coaches, quite excited by that. We formulated our document. I felt that, you know, I've been working towards this for years. If the day come that I had to go and do an interview, I wasn't going to lack for the ability to articulate myself in what I was going to bring.
And that showed, because I actually chaired the mock interview panel, and of course we decided there was a mock job up for grabs. Just anyone listening might be interested to know what we're talking about. And it was interesting to compare two Liverpool people, yourself and Harry Kewell, how you handled that, because Harry came in, well, you know, I'm the high-profile player, obviously I get the job. Mm-hmm. But the job is not as a player, Harry.
No.
We're not looking for a player, we're looking for a manager.
Well, the thing that was interesting on the course is one or two of the ex-players, we had about 8 or 9 ex-players on the course, one or two of them felt they had to take the first job that come. And me, who's been a development coach and had obviously had the experience as assistant manager in Brazil, was going to refuse to take a job unless I had certain questions answered.
Yes.
And that was a really interesting debate, and that probably tells you where people are in football, you know, and our jobs are hard to come by. And you know, I always think I've been blessed by having the development route, and I think that I see Southgate spoke about that recently, because he went into Middlesbrough straight away and as a manager, and he was speaking about it and saying that he would have preferred to, now he's been in it a bit longer, to have gone a slightly different route, you know, and come through development. I do think this big thing about, you know, he's a development coach, and I think it's like a put down. But I think we need to take the word youth off of development. I think the way that football's going now, I'm really interested in the NFL and the NBA and other sports, and Eddie Jones at the moment, you know, I think he did a really good interview in the last few days where he said, "Welcome to modern rugby, gents, come in and join us." And it was about the use of one of his players, and I can't say I've been following rugby closely, but I get that a little bit. I get to first team football and I feel a little bit underwhelmed by what I see.
Yeah.
I don't see much creativity. I see a lot of people that are very safe and burned by football, and therefore Do they water down the talent of the players they have? I would like to see a lot more development going on. I'd like to see a lot more individual work at first team level. I like to see first team players getting better. I think it comes down to the individual and the individual
But that's
drive.
continual development you're talking about there.
Yeah.
And you see, when you take a team like Rangers, well,
Yeah.
in Scotland anyway, you take a team like Rangers, and these players, they're assets. They've cost money.
Mm-hmm.
They are costing money on a weekly basis, so they're an asset. Now, if you invested your money in property, for instance, you would develop the property.
Yeah.
You would maintain it at least. But very often in big clubs, they'll bring in an asset, they'll buy the player just to use him, and they don't maintain that asset. They just use. He's there to play every 7 days at least. He's going to give us a performance.
Yeah.
And I've always advocated you would develop this, and you maybe buy him for 2 million and you sell him 3 years later for 10 million. You know?
We're certainly the two clubs in this country. I'd say all the clubs in Scotland, but certainly the two clubs at the top end league in this country, that has to be their model, because we don't have the financial backing of the TV and the media and the sponsors like they have in England. So we have to bring players, develop them on. You certainly have to look for a niche in the market, and I think there's a lot of players in England and around Europe that have been talented youth players that have fallen into a black hole because they can't break through because the amount of experienced players being brought into the Premier League, for example.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of talented players, maybe between the ages of 19 and 23, that have fallen into a black hole, that were very talented, have maybe lost their way, that you can get hold of and polish and work with. You have to have a really good eye in terms of your style. I think Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool is the perfect manager if you want to look for a manager who recruits for how he wants to play. So as the moment he's come into Liverpool, every player he has now is more robust and athletic than the players he had when he first went in. Hence, when he first went in, there was a lot of injuries, and the game, he didn't look exactly how he wanted it to. Now it does, and he's recruited for that. And I think that that's the big thing for clubs. Have you got a model? Is everyone buying into the model? You know, the sporting directors, technical directors, the CEOs, with the manager, with the recruitment, with the academy. Are they buying into this one philosophy that you can...
But you see, I think a lot of them may be buying in for immediacy, immediate results, as opposed to potential. What's the potential of this player to bring in?
This is interesting, because a lot of there's a lot of negatives about Scottish football out there by Scottish people more than anyone.
Oh yeah.
Right. So there's our own self-critics, but there's been a lot of good Scottish managers. I'm interested by this. Because when I was thinking...
Where are they now, Michael?
But when I was... Well,
I mean, we look at Rangers, I mean, you know, with the greatest of respect, this is little Liverpool now we've got up there.
Yeah, I think it's like, in Scotland, there's not a lot of finances. So you have to have a good eye, and you have to be willing to work with the players. And also, if you're not in Europe, you play predominantly, for most of the season, Saturday to Saturday. So you get a good working week. So I always thought, as a young coach, because I had Scottish friends and I've been up and done a bit of work for the SFA, I always thought Scotland might be the good first opportunity for me. Why? Because you get a lot of time on the training pitch if you're not at the big two clubs, and you have to really get out of the players what's there.
Maximise their potential.
Because you're not going to go and buy a superstar. You know, and I think that is... But why is the Scottish manager not... why is there not more kicking on like there was years gone by? Well, there's not British coaches in general, because the foreign coaches are coming in. So that's valued more than what used to happen when the Scottish managers going down. And so that opportunity's changed. I still think there's really good managers there. I think in our league, without naming any of them, because I probably could name the other 8 or 10 clubs, every one of their managers, I think, is doing a smashing job. Now, some of the fans might say, oh yeah, he's underachieving slightly, or he is. But they're fighting an uphill battle to start off with. I think there's some really good managers. I think you only have to look in the league and look at the jobs they do on the budget, and they have to really get out of their players what they can. So when I spoke earlier about the style of some of the teams, well, that's irrelevant. Each coach has their own opinion. I'm just giving my opinion that I would like football to be less stressful and more beautiful, but managers got to get what they think, their style, across. But I do think in Scotland at the moment there's very good managers, because the finances, look at the money that's spent. You have championship teams in England spending 30 million that are not as big as your Aberdeens, Hibs and Hearts.
Oh yeah.
So the game in Scotland, we can't keep looking down at England because it's the world's biggest league and the most, the word deluded is probably wrong, the most unrealistic league in the world. We have to try and look at maybe some other leagues and see how they're operating in a similar sort of thing and say, okay, how can we see that as a model?